guys, it's Sarah, and okay, let's talk about what I read in the month of March. March was an interesting month because this is when all the stuff started happening and everything started changing and everything went woo. So I ended up reading 11 books, which is really, really good, really good. So I'm proud of the way it ended up. I still wanted to read more, I think, or I don't know what it was. There were just some things here and there that I just wasn't like, I think, I don't know. It was weird. I know I had at least a week where I just didn't want to read anything and I was barely reading anything. And that's when all these changes started happening. So I just kind of had to readjust and kind of reset my brain. And I spent a lot of that week just watching TV shows and not wanting to use my brain a whole bunch. So still ending up with 11 books is really good though. So I'm not going to complain. But let me show you what I read. I started out the month finishing a book that was left over from February, and that is Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I was reading this for the Historathon, readathon that I hosted in February, that I co-hosted with Amanda from the Curly Reader. And this was our group pick, and it took me forever to read it, and it's not the book's fault. It was totally me. I just took forever to get to it, and then when I finally did, it was kind of too late, and I didn't have time to finish it within the month. So, but I did finish it in the very early parts of March, and I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It wasn't a full 5-star the way her other books have been for me. But I still really, really enjoyed it. The story was great. So this book is set in Madrid, and this is actually following, I think, the Spanish Civil War. Is that what it is? And there is the dictatorship of General Francisco Franco. So he was a real person, and he was a dictator for Spain for a very, very long time. So this is in the midst of that, and you're seeing how the country is being run. You're seeing how it's influencing the treatment of its own citizens versus the treatment of Americans, which was very controversial back then because the government was allowing American tourists to come in, but they also hated Americans. So it was very interesting to read about that part of it and why they let the Americans in. Spoiler alert, it's all about the money. But you're seeing how the political climate is in this time frame, and you are following a young girl who is working as a maid in a hotel, and she finds a connection with an American boy who's a photographer, and he is very interested in Spain as a whole and the country and how it works, and he is basically wanting to be a reporter and a photojournalist, and you see him trying to figure out these things, and you see her trying to warn him, you're gonna die, bro. So yeah, it was really, really good. You see their connection though, and it was beautiful and lovely, and I really, really enjoyed it. So a 4-star, not a full 5-star for me, but I really love this author. The next book that I read was And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Bachman. I think that's the name of it. This is a very short novella. I picked it up at the library one day because I was in there and I wanted to grab a couple things. So I grabbed this one because it was very short, and I love Bachman. I want to read everything that he writes. And I read this very quickly in one sitting. It was only like 60-ish pages or so. So it was very quick. And it follows a man, older man, and his grandson who are sitting on a bench, and they are talking about life and death and things that are coming up. And that's all I'm going to say because it was very short and it was beautiful and I loved it and I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I read was a 5-star prediction, and that is Beautiful Bastard by Christina Lauren. This is the first book in the Beautiful Bastard series, and I was reading this on my Kindle. It was a whole thing. I talked about it in my 5-star prediction follow-up. So it was an experience reading this one, but I did get the physical book and I read through the whole thing. So I have read what it is, the final version of this book, and I gave it 4 stars. It was enjoyable. It was fun. It was guilty pleasure, definitely. Not the best written. The characters drove me nuts a little bit, but it was fun and it was snarky, and I love Christina Lauren. So not their best, so I did give it 4 stars. And I did buy the rest of the series, so there's that. And then I picked up a book for the backlist readathon, and for this prompt, it was to read the shortest book on your backlist. And for me, that was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This was a book that was gifted to me, and I read this one. This one came in at 106 pages. So this was definitely the shortest book on my list. And if you saw my vlog, you know I didn't like this book. I didn't like this book. And I kind of don't like it a little bit more now after seeing something. Okay. So I don't get into politics or religion or anything on my channel. I just don't choose to do that. But something that I saw on TV correlated with this that made me go, oh man. So I was watching the Leah Remini Scientology and the Aftermath show, which I loved that whole show. And I was finishing it up, watching season 3 recently. And they did a special show on the Nation of Islam and that religion and how it is being brought into Scientology and the two are merging. And that really made me go, oh my goodness, because James Baldwin talks a lot about the Nation of Islam in here, and I believe he was a member of that. So that just made me go, ugh. Yeah, so I don't know. I gave this 2 stars. I do think the writing was really good. He's a very gifted writer, but I did not agree with a lot of the tones of things that were in here. And yeah, so, okay, that's all I'm going to say. And then next I read The Thing About Jellyfish. And this was for, oh gosh, did I read this for backlist? I think I did. I just don't remember what prompt it was. Let me check. What prompt was it for that? I did read this for a backlist, and that is for a book that was recommended to me. And this has been recommended to me by Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library, and her daughter actually is specifically the one who recommended this. And I also read this for middle grade March because it is a middle grade book, and it fulfilled the prompt to read a book with illustrations in it because this has illustrations throughout as well. So The Thing About Jellyfish by Ali Benjamin. Okay. I loved this book. This book follows a young girl who is dealing with grief. She has lost somebody very important to her, and she is dealing with the things that happened up until the point where that person was lost to her, and her guilt that she's dealing with that. And the way that she decides to cope with this is very interesting. And you are following her, just kind of dealing with all this stuff. And she actually ends up choosing to go silent and not speak. And that's her choice. So you kind of see how that affects her and how it affects the people around her. And then other things that are happening because of that. It was really, really good and a lot deeper than I thought it was going to go. So I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend this one. If you like middle grade, definitely pick this one up. And I gave it 5 stars. The next one that I read is one that I got from my library on my Kindle, and I read Beautiful. Yep. This is a novella after the first Beautiful Bastard book. So this is just a little novella that follows the same characters. It's just like a continuation of their story. And it wasn't very long. It was pretty short. I flew through it really quickly. It was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't necessary. I didn't need it. But it was fun. And the next one I also read on my Kindle, and that is Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Kane. This is the first book in the Stillhouse Lake series. And this is a thriller series. And this was one of my 5-star predictions as well. This one follows a woman who is married and she has 2 children. Everything's great. Everything's lovely. She comes home one day to find police surrounding her house, and she finds out that her husband has been a serial killer this whole time. Yay! And he's been torturing and cutting up women in their garage. So there's that. So she is forced to go on the run with her kids because she is getting publicly basically blamed for this as well, even though she had no idea any of it was going on. So you're following her trying to set down some roots and produce some normalcy for her and her family, which is really hard for her to do. She kind of finally feels like she's in a good place where she thinks that she can maybe stay for a while without having to run again, and nobody knows who she is. And then a body turns up in the lake beside her house in the very same veins that her husband has killed. So that's where it goes. It's fantastic. I loved it. I loved it. I'm so excited to move on to number 2, and I plan to do that very soon. It was a 5-star thriller read for me. And the next one that I finished is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Finally, I can't tell you how long my daughters and I have been reading this. Well, Kaylin and I have been reading this a very long time. Actually, we started it and didn't get very far, and then we moved here and then didn't pick it up again. It's hard to get her to sit down and like listen to an audiobook like this. But we picked it back up again in January and started from the beginning because we weren't that far into it. So we did read through the entire illustrated edition and just finished it up in March. And we have watched movies 1 through 4 now, and we are very excited to move on to book number 5. We are not waiting for the illustrated edition anymore because that's going to take another 1.5 years to come out. We're not doing that. So, but yes, we did finish number 4. Very excited. Obvious 5 stars, always. Then the next one that I finished was a review book that I read for March. So I did have this in my March ARC review, so I won't go into super detail about it. I'll leave that link down below if you guys haven't watched it yet. But that is Darling Rose Gold. This is by Stephanie Roble. This just came out in March, and I loved this book. This book follows a young girl who has a mother who was accused of abusing her for her entire life. And her mother is now getting out of jail. So she decides to take her mother in and allow her to live in her house again. And it seems that she's forgiven her, but has she really? We don't know. Fantastic. Twisty, turny. I didn't know who was more crazy. I loved every single page of this book. Highly recommend. Loved it. This does deal with Munchausen syndrome by proxy, so keep that in mind. If that's something you're sensitive to, stay away. But if that subject doesn't bother you, definitely pick this up. And then I finished another book that I hesitated whether to put it in here or not because I'm going to be talking about it again here soon. So I'll keep it brief. I'll just tell you what it is, my basic thoughts, and my star rating, and then I'll go into more detail about the actual book in another video, which you'll see why. It's The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I did just finish this. This is for my 5-year unhaul project, so I will be talking more in depth about that when I do my wrap-up for that, which will be coming up here soon, hopefully this weekend. We'll see. I really enjoyed this. Very surprisingly enjoyed it a lot, and I gave it 4 stars. And last but certainly not least, I finished The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or the first part of the Lord of the Rings books, I guess you could say, because this was originally written as one big tome, but they split it up into 3 parts for publication purposes. So I finished the first part. I gave this one 4 stars. There were parts that I was a little bored. There were a couple parts on here that I got a little bit bored, and I found myself skimming a couple of the paragraphs just to kind of like get through the scenes to get to the good stuff. But the good stuff was really good. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to go on to the next one to see where we're going to be going, but I just, I enjoyed it. It was really good. It is a little bit tedious to get through, to be honest with you. But the good stuff is just so good that it makes the boring stuff like, okay, I'm okay with the boring stuff because the good stuff is just, So 4 stars because there was some boringness, and I did find myself a little bit like, okay, let me just get through the scene so we can get back to the good things. But I did really enjoy it. Okay, that was a lot. So it was a good reading month, but I did have a week where I was just like, nope, I didn't want any of it. So hopefully, I'm not done. I had 2 DNFs. Hold up. I had 2 DNFs this month, guys. So yeah, first one was A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. I was buddy reading this with Candace, and then we actually both ended up DNFing it. She DNF'd it first, and I was like, maybe I'll keep going, blah, blah, blah. And then the longer I waited, the more I didn't care. So I was like, I'm good. So I'm good. I don't need to read this. I'm fine. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't like amazing, and it didn't really keep my attention all that much anyway. So there's that one. And then I also DNF'd Brightside by Kim Holden, which I was reading for my 5-star predictions. I DNF'd that one as well. And I've already talked about that. So yeah, I didn't like it at all. And I got 40% through it. Not for me. Now that's it. Those are all the books. So yeah, let me know down below how March was for you. I know that March was a big adjustment for everybody because of all this COVID stuff happening. So I think a lot of people were just kind of thrown off balance, and it's been affecting some readers big time. I know some readers who read consistently a lot all the time, and even they were having some trouble this month. So let me know how all this stuff affected you and if it did. And yeah, so hopefully April will be better. Hopefully I will get through a whole lot in April. I have some really big plans that I will share with you very soon. And yeah, all right. Let me know down below what your thoughts are, all that good stuff, and I'll talk to you later.